Thank you so much for having all of us over here. Um, Before I start, I wanted to just check with people. Do you need like a definition for deep tech just for the understanding as such? If you can just raise the hands. Awesome, great. I'll just start with that. Uh, so deep tech, I work for a fund called Special Invest. We only invest in the so-called deep science and deep tech investments. Deep tech as such is not it's a new lingo, new terminology, but it's not new. Only in the last 30 years or 3 decades that software has started eating the world. Before that, since Industrial Revolution, it has always been hardware that has led innovation. We have a new phrase for that. It's called deep tech. Mostly when we say deep tech, we refer to technological innovations that are R&D, science, and engineering based, which solve some of the largest challenges facing humanity. And there is no bigger challenge than climate change at the moment that is facing humanity. So we do need deep tech solutions to solve that. India has quite a few of deep tech innovations that are happening in the country, but given where our founders are and where our ecosystem is, we need to come together, not just as a village, but as the whole country to support these founders, to help them scale, provide them with not just capital, but also mentorship, industrial opportunities to test their solutions, sell them, commercialize them, and also generate value for every stakeholder. We have an excellent panel over here who represent various stakeholders in the industry. I would request from Dr. Shilpi just one-line introduction of what you do, and we can come all the way to Seema from there.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is a wonderful initiative which IVCA is doing, and I think climate is something we really need to talk about and need to do something about it. I'm Shilpi Gupta. I head a division in BIRAC, which is Innovate for Sustainable Development. And what we do is, it's a newly created division within BIRAC, and what we intend to do is to look at technologies which focus on circularity, which focus on sustainability. We're looking at waste to value solutions, deep tech in terms of synthetic biology, and other climate-related pollution and other climate-resilient agriculture aspects is what we want to support and fund within this area. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Gaurav.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Gaurav Kapoor, and I work with the British government here. Firstly, huge thanks to IVCA, and great to see the second version of this Green Return Summit. I work with the British government, and we look at investing in India and working with India on climate. It's a big agenda for us. Both climate and tech are quite important, and we had our Prime Minister come here, and they've also announced some initiatives jointly that we will do with government, and you'd be pleased to know that Climate Fund on deep tech was also part of that announcement. So very pleased to be working with all of you on that agenda going forward.
Well, thank you. Priya.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Priya Shah. I run a fund called Theia Ventures. We're an early-stage climate tech fund, also institutionally backed. Thank you to IVCA for having us here and for hosting this event. We back companies at the very early stages, so we're looking at IP-led technologies across 3 main verticals within climate. One is energy and mobility and batteries. The second one is material science and biotech. And the third one is everything under industrial decarbonization, so essentially data centers, property tech, wastewater treatment, carbon decarbonization across the steel industry and other hard-to-abate industries. So, and we work very closely with founders to help them with the next stage of their capital cycle. So I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for having me.
Sandeep.
Yeah, firstly, thanks to IVCA for hosting us. My name is Sandeep Tandon, and I work with United Nations Industrial Development Organization, leading a program called Facility for Low Carbon Technology Deployment. UNIDO typically works with government agency. Our counterpart is DPIIT, but the program on innovation, we work very closely with Bureau of Energy Efficiency and Department of Science and Technology. So UNIDO also leads a program on clean tech innovation globally. Currently, it's covering 16 countries. We'll talk about it more.
Yeah. Thank you. Seema.
Hi, my name is Seema Chaturvedi. I'm founder, managing partner of AWE Funds. Thanks again from us as well for IVCA to invite us. AWE Funds is investing right now actively in deep tech and tech-led innovation in climate and health, because our definition of the climate problem is beyond just mitigation, but it's also adaptation. And we see that as a huge application area. We typically come in helping companies scale. So we like to call ourselves an early growth fund, and we like to help companies scale because we see our value proposition as being able to accelerate world-class businesses by helping their scale journey from necessarily not so much 0 to 1, but 1 to hopefully 100, but definitely 1 to 10.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I would start with Dr. Shilpa and Sandeep. In India as a country, we have not been known for commercializing technologies as such, but that has changed in the last 10, 12 years, especially in very specific sectors. I, as an early stage investor, is now reaping the benefits, the fruits of some of their labor, the early stage grant capital that has been funded to commercialize some of the technologies. BIRAC and FLCTD has been doing a lot in that manner. Dr. Shilpa, can you please tell me what has BIRAC done in the last 10 years? It's a success for sure. The number of innovations that have been commercialized in the biosciences space is phenomenal. My pipeline is very, very bright in this space. And a lot of that thanks goes to BIRAC doing that. And now other departments are modeling that as well. So what has BIRAC done so far, and what are your learnings so far from that, and what is changing in the grant and the work you do?
So BIRAC is a Section 8 not-for-profit public sector undertaking. We've been set up by the Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology. And we were set up 13 years ago in 2012. And at that time, there was no entity, nobody within the country who would support innovation in the private sector. All the ministries and departments which were there, they were basically focusing on promoting academic-based research, in academic institutes and research. That was the time when Department of Biotechnology actually realized, that there is a need to set up a body who could promote entrepreneurship within the country in the biotech innovation ecosystem. And that's where BIRAC was set up. What we do is, we have, if you go to our website, we have a whole plethora of schemes which we say right from inception till the time the product goes to market. So on one side, we have a BIG grant, which is Biotechnology Ignition Grant, which takes an idea to a proof of concept. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have a product commercialization program where we support commercial ventures that, let's say, an entity, an organization who's ready to take their product to market but are still facing challenges in terms of regulation or maybe capital for setting up those commercial plants. We have a program for them also. And then we have other schemes. Some are totally grant-based systems. Others are where contribution from the entity is required as well, in addition to what BIRAC supports. And we are sector agnostic. We would support any area of biotechnology. In the last 13 years, we have not only supported project funding, we have also established a number of incubation centers within the country. So, there was a time when a person, after their master's or even after their PhD, they had some idea, but they didn't get a project and they didn't know what to do. That was the time it was realized that there should be a centralized facility where an entrepreneur, if they want to get incubated, they can set up an office space in these incubators as well as have the research facilities that are there. So these incubation centers are housed within different research institutes and parks in the country, and entrepreneurs, can then incubate over there and not only use the centralized facility and office space, but there's a lot of mentoring, business mentoring, as well as technical mentoring, which is provided in these incubators to support the innovators. Also, in addition to that, BIREC has an internal IP team which helps our grantees with their intellectual property, have all the, help them in filing their patents. We have a regulatory cell within BIREC, and we recently have a new division which we call at Innovate for Sustainable Development, to which I am heading, and we are thinking of, promoting more deep science, deep tech solutions within this space. Having done all this, recently the Department of Biotechnology announced the Bio-E3 policy. I'm not sure how many have heard about it. It's biotechnology for environment, employment, and economy. So what we are harnessing is that we want that biotechnology now, in addition to contributing to research, should also contribute to economy. So there are, we're setting up large-scale infrastructure with that funds within different organizations, so that those startups and entrepreneurs who do not have space to scale up their research, they could use those facilities and take their product to scale.
Thank you. They have around 25 plus BioNest and other incubation centers across the country.
95.
95, sorry, my bad. I've been to many of them. It's fantastic. So just go there and you'll meet amazing entrepreneurs all the time. Sandeep, FLCTD has started using the phrase low carbon even before climate tech became like a thing in the venture industry and so on. So what are your learnings and what have you done that has helped India develop this low carbon economy as such?
Yeah, I'll take a step back even from the time of FLCTD, which started in 2017, almost as a contemporary of BIREC's program, but very focused on the climate change solutions for the industries. Prior to that, UNIDO ran a program called Global Clean Tech Innovation Program that started in 2014, went up till 2017. Essentially an accelerator program, but identified the climate tech related startups. Atomberg was one of those in that cohort, and many of these companies were around. And we did a global forum in San Francisco where Indian startup became the global winners in that category. So we realized the Indian startups are top-notch, second to none, and we have a emerging landscape. When we started the facility for low carbon technology, it had given very clear goals to identify 120 innovations and demonstrated, and 40, one-third getting commercialized. It was a daunting task for us when we began because it was a very different landscape in 2017, 2018. And the technology areas that were given, because these are programs that UNIDO was doing with funding from Global Environment Facility based on the thesis that now to address the climate change mitigation, you need to advance the frontiers of innovation. So innovation can take the lead and giving new solutions. We worked with the innovations in the industrial and commercial sector, which are the key area of UNIDO's intervention, and identified the technologies that provided financial support of very modest amount in today's term of $50,000 to validate the technology in the real operating environment to each of the entrepreneurs. But we also realized that accelerator program has very, very important support for the innovations to go to the stage of commercialization. So we brought back the component of accelerator program. So any entrepreneur coming out of the incubation program could come to the accelerator program and launch their solution, but also from the accelerator program, independently participate the annual innovation challenge, get a funding to do the technology validation. And here the whole crux was to do a beta testing and de-risking of the innovation before its commercial launch. Once the technologies were getting successfully validated, we realized that doesn't automatically lead to commercialization. Then we engage another agency to provide hand-holding support to the startup. So how you take what preparatory work you need to do the fundraise and talk to the investors. So it has been systematically de-risking of the innovations. We partnered with CII Green Business Center, who did act as like a third party for doing field trial and validation support. And about 88 startups received financial support from the program. Out of that, 69 completed technology validation, and these were done in about 250 industrial site location all across the country, large industry, MSME. That became very, very important, learning that you need to expose these startups to take their innovation in actual field environment and test and validate, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. It gives them a chance to iterate in design and development and leading to deployment, and that was the success. So out of these 88 that were supported, 69 completed the validation, 51 had got commercialized. And again, these have gone forward in doing the fundraise, hiring more staff, and it's also during the lifetime of the project, about 4.9 million tons of CO2 emissions have been avoided. 73 new patents have been filed. So it's been a great learning. One thing very important as a key takeaway is de-risking the innovation before you make the investment decision is very, very important.
Thank you. Many of my startups have deeply benefited from the grant program FLCTD runs. I'll now go to Priya and Seema. Priya, I know we both invest in the early stage, but one of the challenges that both of us share is also making sure our portfolio becomes success and then taking them to scale, right? Like we often talk about, and rightfully we have the best people to talk about that early ignition and support. But what's happening on the scale? I mean, to 2022, we kind of peaked with a lot of climate tech early investments. But what is happening now with scale? What are the challenges startups are facing when they are going into that commercialization stage? And what is happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when we fund these startups, they're usually at technology readiness level 4 or 5, similar to what you look at as well, across hardware and software. So typically on the hardware side, we're looking at batteries, we're looking at pyrolysis units for biochar, energy storage, labs for green molecule extraction, et cetera, from agricultural waste. And these are typically technologies that haven't really, that are fairly novel, that haven't really kind of, been able to secure commercial interest at a very large scale. So I think for us, it's been encouraging beyond just energy, renewables, and mobility, that there has been a really big push of very talented founders going into other spaces within climate tech. And also what's been useful to see is a huge amount of commercial awareness, especially amongst industry. So whether it's hard-to-abate industries like steel, cement, glass, automotive, or whether it's FMCG industries, trying to look at how to green both their supply chains and their industrial processes, and to actually work productively at startups to help them gain access to these kind of lower energy costs, reducing industrial spend, and they really see the use cases now more than ever. So I think 2022, yes, we saw a peak in investment going into climate tech, but I think now it's actually merging across different verticals. So it's not just seen as a pure climate investment, it's actually seen as making economic sense for these large corporations to actually take on board these green technologies and make them worth it in terms of actually replacing the fossil fuel status quo. So across industry, mobility, supply chain, material, we're seeing a tremendous amount of adoption shift, and that's actually helped the startups in our portfolio actually get a larger wallet of these customers. And so that's been a very positive shift, and I think government has been a very big proponent of this as well, in introducing subsidies, like pushing large corporations to actually adopt a lot of these technologies and pushing that way forward, as well as the advent of new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, which has really helped to accelerate this adoption and make the actual costs go down, make replication a lot easier in lab technologies, et cetera. So I think we're seeing a really positive shift in commercial adoption, and scaling is actually happening a lot faster now than before.
Thank you, Priya. That's super useful, and I resonate with everything that she said. Seema, I have a slightly different question for you. See, venture capital is risky. Deep tech is the riskiest of the spectrum in venture capital. And then you also decided that risk is not enough. I mean, I'll also add a gender lens to it. So it's, so much respect for you for saying that, doing that, and raising capital to invest in with all these lenses. Tell us more about it, and what is required in the space as such. Like, I mean, this very, very weird nuance required in the intersection of all these.
Yeah, let's just say we like solving complex problems, and we resonate very intently with the entrepreneurs we back. But I just want to build upon, before I answer the gender piece, but I want to build upon what Priya said. The one thing we are seeing very actively, and what's core to us, is our past experiences, which lend themselves extremely well to helping companies scale. And yes, there is paucity of funds at the innovation phase, but there's a bigger valley of death. There is so much great innovation, I say withering on the vines, which can solve for 80% of the current problems, but they never see the light of day because they don't know how to scale. And I want to emphasize one thing. Innovation does not have national boundaries. And what we are realizing is that we are uniquely positioned, given our past experiences, our networks, to help what is being built in India to be built for the world. And deep tech is such a great lever to be solving for the world's problems, because sadly, or maybe fortunately, unfortunately, climate does not have a siloed impact. It affects the whole planet. And so we are looking at how we can help some of these companies tap into markets that may not even exist entirely in India, but can benefit from selling those as commercial solutions outside. And each of our portfolio companies right now is actively not only selling within India, it's actually selling outside. Fantastic. So to add then to the complexity of adding gender. So I want to clarify, we were never meant to be a fund only for women founders. We just think very strongly about never letting a good crisis go to waste. And the biggest crisis facing humanity right now is the climate change. And we said this is the one time people can listen to us, because guess what? A lot of us are changing our behaviors for the reason that we all want to survive. So at that inflection point, and the only time I realized most people are willing to listen to what you have to say is when you're writing a check. So we said, let's just make it a little more extensive in what we ask. I have to clarify, we are profit for purpose. We are not leading with subsidized returns. None of our LPs want to see a hit on the returns. But we think that the gender equity piece is actually a very strong lever to unlock, we like to think, best in class, hopefully top quartile. Our portfolio is already trending at what can become a top quartile return for a portfolio, and we're very proud of it. But we are very much cognizant about how we can use those levers of incorporating as an outcome gender equity in the forms of supply chain, market making, employee base, leadership, because fundamentally when you take 50% of the population along with you, chances are you have greater sustainability of your company.
Completely agree. Climate is a gender problem. Like, I mean, you can't separate either out. Gaurav, I'll come to you now. And as Seema rightly said, climate change is a global menace. Sometimes I call it a global public bad, not good. But then it is a global issue. And in that, international collaborations become very, very important. I'm very curious to know, and I'm sure the audience are also, what is British High Commission doing with an investment capital head? And what are you doing in the climate space? And what can we expect from the UK-India collaboration that's been so hyped about of recently?
We all want to know that.
Yeah, right?
Great, thank you. And I think the good part about coming in last is that you get to hear the valuable perspectives of everybody else on the panel. And I think what we can conclude is that scaling deep tech in India actually means solving for many things, solving for patient capital, solving for the infrastructure we have, and also global collaboration, and doing that all really, really quickly. So, what is it that the UK experience, is relevant? And I don't know how many people know, but in the UK, we've got something called the catapults. And they are precisely set up to address the problems that some of the panelists were talking about. It's about trying to bring together a community of entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, all of the research that happens, companies, industry collaborations, all in one place based on the theme of what they are trying to do. And this is where there's huge benefit from a cohort of people who come together in a shared workspace, and then they can learn from each other and try and solve from the problems that have plagued their predecessors. So it's about learning from their self as well, and trying to really come together quickly, and trying to get to solutions which commercialize on that readiness spectrum, beyond 9 to a proper commercial space. The other question that you asked me was, what is the British government doing here? So we've had problems. So we've been involved with setting up incubators in especially the low-income states of India. We had some incubators in some of the IITs and IIMs as well. I'm now going back about 12 years, 14 years, where we tried to seed them because we knew that India was a powerhouse of innovation and a talent for the laboratory of solving not just India's problems, but world's problems. So how do we sort of work together? There's also, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got great startups which are looking to go global. So we've had this with Invest India, a lot of the information on what are the UK's policies, incentives, frameworks, market access needs, all of that put together in what we call, and what I think Invest India has, is a startup bridge where people can go to look for information about if you have a solution that is applicable for the UK, what does that take? Also, I think it's quite fair to say that the problem of India's net zero journey is that will require moonshots and not marginal gains. And that's where deep tech has that potential. It is the engine for that transformation. And I've been so pleased to meet with some of the companies, and my advice to companies and entrepreneurs is to look at the problem at scale of what it is trying to do, use really deep tech solutions which people have not imagined what a solution could be for those sectors which we've struggled with, and to try and use your entrepreneurial ability to offer those solutions. And what we do is we also have the ability to work on policy, but we also have investment programs. We, through ourselves and through British International Investment, through a lot of other arms where we can work with you to try and see how you can really scale and disrupt and get us to a better outcome on net zero. So I'll probably just pause there and see if there's any time for questions, because I know we just have 4 minutes. Yeah, thanks.
So the problem of having such a large panel with 30 minutes, IVCA, please take note, is that I get to ask only very few questions than how much I want. I want to protect some time for audience questions, so I'll quickly go for one question that, if you want to make it controversial, feel free to, but I want to ask, I'll start with Dr. Shilpi, and then anyone can just jump in. What are we doing wrong now? Like, we often speak about everything that we are doing right in the space. Tell something we are doing wrong and how we will correct them. If anybody wants to jump in before, and just start with that, I'm okay with that.
I do have a idea there. I think what we could do better, I won't say wrong, is get rid of this notion that everything should be siloed. And I say this to specifically the DFI world and the government-funded world. Let's not create silos. Please allow at least the fund managers to collaborate in a manner that they can unlock capital in a more steady way so that we can deploy. Because ultimately, the money needs to be in the hands of the innovators, and we are the wire media. But creating conditions that prevent us from making that execution possible comes in the way.
That's a great point, yeah.
So I'll say we're not doing anything wrong. What I'll say is we need to, as Seema mentioned, we really need to come out and, like in India, I mean, a controversial statement, it's like, me too. I think it's world around. You just want to think about yourself. So there's so much of funding available. There is so much of infrastructure which the government is creating, which the venture, capitalists have. We really need to come up, collaborate. First, the funding agencies have, similar, what is it that we want to support? There should be a cohort of fund agencies who would, let's say, just look at the early stage, and then a cohort of fund who would look at mid, and then somebody who to take it to commercialization. Like, instead of everybody wanting to have that, good technology and take it for themselves, it's better. I think we really need to come together, form fund of funds, and, take it forward from there.
Gaurav, I actually would want to modify that a little bit for you. I mean, collaboration has come out as a big theme with both of them. And I was in the UK earlier this year, I told you this, and happened to go to some catapults and some of these. And UK has been doing actually much better in this collaborative thing. What are lessons for India to take from there?
So I think there are two things that I would say, or maybe three. If I were a consultant, I would say three, but maybe I'll stick with two as a government official. So the first one, I think, is we're not learning fast enough. And I think it's meant to be, whoever we are, whether if we are government, we need to look at other, where is the best policy done around the world and try and see how we can do it. If we are an investor, we need to look at, not being siloed or not looking at some sectors because we've not traditionally not looked at them, but trying to be open. If we've, if we are an entrepreneur, not figuring out, not saying that I have the best solution, but actually providing good global evidence for an ambition that you have to justify that. So I think everybody has to learn quickly in this game. So that's one. Second is, I think it's related because I added that quick bit, which is about the urgency. I think the climate change, you talked about it as, a bad public, a public bad. I think the UK calls it as a climate contingency, an exigency, where it's an existential issue for a lot of the small island states and a lot of the others. And therefore, I don't think collectively we get the urgency to change. I think we are still following our own respective slower processes and we haven't realized how urgent it is.
Priya?
Yeah, I think also, I would agree with the other panelists. One area I would sort of think about doubling down on is how to increase the risk appetite of a lot of investors. Deep tech, in this particular definition of it, needs a lot of high risk, a sort of appetite for long-term capital. We call it patient capital. There could be other terminologies for it. But essentially thinking about different metrics to sort of value companies, not just the revenue and the EBITDA and what we've been used to looking at in the sort of previous cycles of venture capital, but looking at milestones, looking at IP, and then familiarizing. I mean, right now there are so many funds saying that they're looking at deep tech, and their objective is to actually ramp up the level of knowledge, understanding, and actually match that desire to invest with that risk appetite, and that's really important. And then secondly, I would just like to add that, some things that can be modeled on, countries like the UK or the US is the amount of work that they do with academic institutions, and particularly incubations, labs, and sort of linking corporates directly to those labs, and to get those R&D innovations spinning out directly from those labs into the sort of testing grounds of those corporates. And that's something that I would love to see more happening in India.
Nice. Sandeep?
So let me add to that.
It's a very natural transition for you. I beg to differ on that. Industry is not yet ready to go to that leap on, talking to the academics. They don't understand innovation. My entire, last 10 years of running this program, we have to go and talk to the industry of providing a, bring everybody to on the same table, that this is a very collaborative effort, because we don't know, when we are taking an innovation at TRL 4 or 5, how it's going to work, and the industry asks the question, which is all, valid for a commercially available, technology. So we have to change a lot of terminologies. So for instance, they would say we are doing pilot, and I had to say that, we are not doing pilot, we are doing technology validation, because we don't know how it is going to work, what kind of performance and saving is going to give. So just have patience, allow it to work. And often we were quite taken aback when we asked industry that you tell us your problem, since we are running the innovation challenge. Maybe we can incorporate that in our call for application. And we got zero input from the industry. That is when we realized that industry always operates in a compliance mode. They can't foresee what kind of technology would be needed. And I have often challenged the industry leader, can you tell what kind of technology you're going to use in 2035, 2040? And that can be started to be developed now. And they were unable to do that. So you need patience and support for doing this collaborative effort, co-design and co-development. And industry needs to be part of that. They have to learn this. Certainly. Collaboration, industry coming forward and doing stuff and bringing more technologies from lab to market is definitely like some of the themes that are emerging. Not very controversial, we already knew this. Any quick questions from audience? We don't have a lot of time. Yeah, gentleman over here. Yeah, just go for it.
Thank you. Arjun Mehta from HydGen. So we are a deep tech innovation-based startup headquartered in Singapore, manufacturing electrolyzers that produce hydrogen. So very much in the deep neck of the woods in the renewable energy, climate change, climate mitigation space when you look at moving from conventional to green hydrogen. That's the sector we play in. I have a question sort of responding to what you mentioned, but it's open to the entire panel. India spends under 2% of our bottom line on R&D. China spends north of 8 of a larger bottom line. That's in actual terms significantly higher. We've talked about the gap in R&D, which is perhaps the biggest issue where deep tech innovation in country in India is muted, relatively muted, to let's say China, the US, Germany, Korea, etc. And I'm not sure if this problem is necessarily going to go away. So the question I have for the entire panel is what kind of on-ground actions are we seeing when it comes to blended finance, grants, concessional funding, or any sort of different thematic VC funds for that matter, which promote R&D in the deep tech space in sectors such as renewable energy or any other climate change product, for example. What can we do more when it comes to financing R&D at the ground level? Thank you.
I have an idea, and we are actually working towards it. We are creating test beds of corporates who will actually be providing the best source of capital, which is revenue, and actually profits.
So in terms of the avenues that are available, recently Government of India has announced the RDI scheme, Research Development Innovation Fund. The specifics of that would be out very soon, and clean energy and climate action is one of the major deep tech thematic that they're looking at. So you can expect more programs coming up in the near future, which will be catering to the climate change. Also, BIRAC has just been partnered with the MNRE, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We'll be coming up with, in the green hydrogen space as well, we'll be coming up with some call for proposals for scaling up. Also, the Bio E3 policy, which is there announced by the Department of Biotechnology. Over there, also 6 thematic sectors have been identified, which are specifically like carbon capture, climate resilient agriculture, bio-based chemicals. Also, there's a lot of funding available within the government if you just look at the different avenues in this area.
Just to add to that, I think India has been doing very well on the R&D funding from the government side. I think our corporates need to step up the game a lot more than, it's usually, in India is a lot of publicly funded R&D. We need a more private funded R&D, and more incentives and policies need to come to align and make that happen. Thank you so much for the entire panel, and thanks all of you for listening to us. We'll hand over to the next stage. Thanks, everyone.